Hello, everybody. Scott Golden here with Golden Opportunities Coaching. Been a while since I've been around. I'm going to try to rectify that in the month of August. Can't believe we're already in August. Anyway, today we're talking about what makes people interesting, how to be more interesting. These are valuable things because I think all of us want to be more interesting in one way or another to either a potential partner or our friends or whomever. And so there's a few things that I've noticed in working with people over the last several years that kind of contribute to them being an interesting person or being able to hold people's attention at another level. Please like, subscribe, comment below if you're inclined to do so. So there's, let's see, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 or 10 things that I want to touch on this list, and I'd love to hear your comments. Please feel free to comment below. One thing is they keep moving. So interesting people are always doing something new. They're focused on expansion of quality of relationships, expansion of hobbies, expansion of different ideas. They're learning things. They may go to school or take online courses or even things like Udemy courses. The idea being that they're always expanding and growing and learning. And this makes a person interesting because when you spend time with them, they're more likely to have something interesting to talk about, right? Like, think about it. The friend who says, oh, by the way, I learned to salsa dance the other day is going to be so much more interesting than the friend that says, remember that time in 1973 when we did this and that? And there's a great place for nostalgia, a wonderful place for memories in our lives, and memories are valuable. But a person who's truly interesting is an individual who's always expanding and growing and doing something new, because we as human beings actually gravitate towards people who do things we haven't done, who've seen things we haven't seen. Because think about it, the world itself is full of 7 billion people across 197 countries who really are only going to, all of us are only going to experience a small sliver of what time on earth has to offer. Now, whether you believe in one and done as far as life is concerned, or whether you believe in reincarnation and you come back multiple times, you're probably not going to remember most of what happens the last time you were here, even if reincarnation is real. So either way, we've got a finite amount of time, and the more we experience, the more interesting we are. So interesting people also do something really interesting. They confront their fears. And the reason that this makes people interesting is because all of us have something we're afraid of. Some people are afraid of death. Some people are afraid of being alone without a relationship. Some people are afraid of being poor. Some people are afraid of not being known, not being recognized or valued. Some people are afraid of spiders. Some people are afraid of snakes. Some people are, like, there's a bazillion things in the world that you can be afraid of. But people who are interesting are people who go, you know what? I saw that I was afraid of this. I did research, or I just manned or womaned up, or I just knuckled up and got her done, and I got through my fear. And the reason that makes people interesting is because fear is an emotion that we can all relate to. I don't think there's anyone on the planet, maybe there might be one or two outliers somewhere, but for the majority of us, 99.9% of people understand and can relate to fear. And the idea of conquering fear is something that we all have, something that we're all interested in the ability to do, and gee, how does somebody do this, and that sort of thing. And that's really interesting in that the more a person conquers their fears or overcomes their challenges, the more inspiring they are, therefore the more interesting they are. So interesting people also care about others, or they find causes they care about. Now, this is a really slippery slope, because when we care about others, we can get into the habit of actually enabling them or propping them up, and that's really dangerous because it can take a lot of our emotion. And I tell people all the time, it's wonderful to care about a person, but you should only care about people as much as they care about themselves. And that's a controversial statement for some people, but let me expand that just a little bit. Again, we go back to 7 billion people on the planet. That's billion with a B. And I think almost everyone, 98, 99% of us need help with something. We might need help financially. We might need help emotionally. We might need help with finding a partner, changing our self-esteem. Maybe somebody doesn't know how. For me, technology. If I need something new tech done, I call my personal assistant and I say, can you do this? Because I know I can't. And I know that technology is not my thing, so I need help with that. But so caring for others is valuable because we can lend our gifts, our talents, our abilities to help those and serve those who don't look at the world the way we do and have talents that we don't have. Now, the problem is when you care about somebody too much, when you care about somebody more than they care about themselves, you go into the world of enabling them, propping them up, and actually hindering their personal and emotional and spiritual development, because sooner or later it's like, okay, well, you didn't take the lead there. You didn't, ultimately go where you needed to go. And so the challenge becomes, now you've gone into enabling them and you've actually hindered them with the relationship. So caring about others is, I want the best for you. If I can help you get there and you're willing to cooperate and collaborate with me and team with me, I'll invest in you. And I have people around the world that as clients certainly, but as friends too, who it's like, hey, I'll help you, but only as much as you help yourself. And that's an awesome boundary to have. But interesting people, they care about other people. They care about human nature. They care about the evolution spiritually, emotionally of humanity, and they go, hey, I want to leave the world better than I came into it. And sometimes that means walking away from toxic situations. Another thing that interesting people do is they become active listeners. Now, what's an active listener? An active listener is a person who knows that they have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. That is to say, we have 2 ears, which means double the amount of mouths, which means we should listen twice as often as we speak. And an active listener is a person who is not planning what they're going to say next when a person's speaking to them. They're not thinking about how to respond. They're thinking about how to be engaged with that other person. Then they pause, then they think, then they respond. So an active listener is a person who understands the value of listening and really taking in what's being said. It's interesting to me that oftentimes when I'm working with clients, one word or one phrase can change the meaning of an entire sentence or paragraph. One word or one phrase can be the difference between, okay, this person gets it and they're about to have a breakthrough, and wait, they're way off base and they don't get it, and I need to go back and re-explain something or re-look at something with them to help them get closer to their breakthrough. Because in reality, and I say this all the time, my opinion as a coach doesn't matter. Their progress does. And one of the reasons I call people the Progress Tribe is because one of the most important things in life, in human existence, is progressing towards something. Maybe you're progressing spiritually, maybe you're progressing professionally, maybe you're progressing personally, or in your relationship with your significant other or with your kids, but there's got to be progress somewhere in your life for there to be satisfaction. And when there isn't, that's where depression and anxiety come from. What's the point of all this? Why am I here? Those are the questions that come when you're really not making progress. So another thing that interesting people do is they take notes. Now, they can take mental notes, physical notes, audio notes, but they really do. They become students of this thing called life. Because I'll never forget, I was blessed to be around some really cool people in both pro wrestling and other forms of entertainment. And I feel old now, but about 15, 16 years ago, I was around a guy who'd been in entertainment for 50 years. And he pulled me aside, and there was a bunch of people just sitting around listening to him tell stories. And it's really interesting because he said something that sticks with me all these years later. He says, the minute I stopped learning, the minute I stopped growing, I'm going to retire the next day. And here's a guy who'd been a worldwide entertainer. He'd performed in over 100 countries. He'd done amazing things. He was regarded well by his peers. He made millions of dollars. And here's this guy with decades of experience who'd done so much more than many of us ever will, and he understood that he still needed to learn. And it's really interesting too, because I can tell another anecdotal story here, but most people know who Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is, former pro wrestler turned probably the biggest action movie star of our generation. But what's interesting is when he was working in the developmental, which is like before you get to a national level, you go to developmental. Think like baseball with AAA and AA baseball. He went to a developmental territory in pro wrestling, and he would carry with him a little pocket notebook, and he would write down quotes and inspirational sayings and ideas and concepts for storylines and gimmicks and movies and all this stuff. And he later kept all of those notebooks. He later kept all those things. Now here's a guy who, came up with a father who was a pro wrestler. His grandfather was as well. He had a pedigree of being a college football standout. All these things. He came to the developmental territory with $7 in his pocket, and now he's one of the richest people in the world. I think the last time I read his net worth, it was over $300 million. So he came in with like the cost of a meal at Burger King and McDonald's, and he, he hasn't left the world yet, but he walked away all these years later as one of the richest people in the world. And it's interesting because the mentor who I know was there for his development said that keeping those notebooks and keeping those ideas and taking notes on everything possible, even things he thought he knew, contributed to that. And I think if you look it up, his production company to this day is called something like $7 Entertainment, $7 Entertainment, and it actually goes back to that time in his life when he had $7 left. And so it's why I struggle when I work with clients who say it'll never happen for me. I've tried everything. No, you've tried everything that hasn't worked yet. And so there's always a way out of your situation, no matter how difficult it may be. And being a student of life is one way to get there. Now, interesting people share. They share ideas, they share concepts, they share time, they share energy, they share the willingness to volunteer, the willingness to give, the willingness to educate. They share physical things. Now, here's an interesting thing. A person who is truly at peace with themselves and really an interesting person is a person who understands that nothing we have is ours anyway. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, if you buy a house, if you buy a car, while you're paying it off, it belongs to the bank. And even if you buy a house, at least here in the United States, probably different places, different rules apply in different places. But here in the States, you buy a house, you don't pay the taxes on it. The government can take it from you. Like, nothing is really ours. And so if you live under the reality that nothing is ever really ours, then sharing doesn't become a big deal, because it's like, I'm going to give you this because somebody gave it to me, or opportunity gave it to me. And I know that I can go and recreate and get new stuff, right? I can get new things. I can have new experiences. So there's no harm in giving. A matter of fact, the energy of the art of giving is one thing that brings people freedom, because you cannot give and be depressed in the moment of your giving. I'm going to say that again. You cannot give and be depressed or in another negative mental state, emotional state in the act of giving. You can go back there 30 seconds later, sure. But the process of giving and sharing, whether it's knowledge or tangible goods, can help people how to break their patterns and really get to a stronger place. Now, interesting people try new things. I think I mentioned that before. It pops up twice on the list. It probably was just something that popped into my head. But they try new things. And what I mean by that is, hey, I like this. Let me try it. The worst thing you're going to find, whether it's a food or a hobby or living in a certain area, is you don't like it. And you move on and you do something different. Again, life's too short to put ourselves into a box. Now, there are some people that are legitimately happy living in a small town, having their family and their house and, 2.3 kids and the dog and the white picket fence. There are people that are still happy that way. And if that's you and you're legitimately happy enjoying that life, continue to do so until you're not anymore. And if you're that way for 60 years, I look at my grandparents, and I understand it was a different generation, but they were married for over 60 years. My grandmother never worked. She was a housewife, a homemaker, and she was happy that way. And she actually, it gave her anxiety to think about working and doing things that other people would do. And so she would do things that were comfortable to her, and every once in a while she'd pick up a new hobby, and sometimes the new hobby was something as simple as learning another stitch for crocheting or whatever it was. But there was always expansion in what she was focused on doing. Another thing that makes people interesting is they don't hang out with cliques. Now, what do I mean by that? Cliques is a social group where you allow yourself to be influenced by the group think of your friends, or a social group, or a group that does the same hobby as you, or even your work environment, or sometimes a toxic family environment where everybody thinks the same way politically, or everyone thinks the same way religiously, or everyone thinks the same way about how life should be lived. Now, there's nothing wrong with having your inner circle, and it makes perfect sense to have your inner circle believe a lot of the same things you do, because it makes it easier to be close to them. But if you disqualify people who believe differently than you, who look at the world differently than you, and you never investigate other people's thinking, then you're missing out on a whole different world experiences. And this goes down to people of different racial backgrounds, people of different political backgrounds, people of different orientations sexually, or creed and belief, religion, whatever. Like, there's all different kinds of people for a reason, and that reason is, at the end of the day, we're all meant to come back and be together as one, even if we're different. And so, really interesting people don't have those cliques, and I can say this: I've learned just as much from a homeless person when I was homeless as I have from multimillionaires I've worked with and been blessed to sit in rooms with and listening on meetings and contribute to meetings with. Were they different things? Yes. Were they equally valuable for different reasons? Yes. And I wouldn't walk away from any of those opportunities, positive or negative, no matter what anybody thinks. Sometimes I found that the homeless people I met on the street were better in terms of quality of people, in terms of morality and stick-to-itiveness and really caring about other people, than a lot of the people who were, middle or upper income, who could have helped and didn't. And it's really interesting to me that if you don't know someone's story, you don't know how they ended up where they are, you have no right or reason to pass judgment on them. Yet we all, almost all, will do this for a variety of reasons. And a lot of it comes down to some of my best friends in life have been homeless and they got it back together, and then others been homeless and haven't gotten it back together, and they ran into trouble with the law, or they ran into trouble where they were homeless for an extended period of time, and I wouldn't kick any of them out of my life, because they all are part of the tapestry that makes up our world, and they all have value, and all that value is equal. Now, the second to last one is goal-driven. So one of the things I work with clients on, obviously, and I'm a big believer in goals, and 3 sets of goals. Your immediate goals, those are the things that can be done this week. Your medium goals, those are the things that can be done this month. And your long-range goals, those are the things that will be done between the next 1 to 5 years. Have them, be driven by them, don't become obsessed with them. And that's so difficult, because the line between drive and obsession is different for every person. If you are disqualifying other parts of your life, or neglecting other parts of your life, it's important to look at the balance or lack thereof when making decisions about how you're going to continue to move forward. And so, obviously, work on your goals. I tell people, work on your goals every day, at least 15, 20, 30 minutes, whatever you have. And if it's a goal that's time sensitive, give it more time. But don't miss opportunities to just be free and try new things on account of your goals, unless you're willing to look at it and go, if I don't do this, I'm going to regret it to the point where I won't enjoy this other activity. If you're really at that place, then continue pushing towards your goal and block out other things. And so it's important to look at that and see it for what it is. Final thing is just let it flow. For everything that's light is dark, and everything that's dark is light. What that means is every situation can turn out positively or negatively. And if we prepare for the best case scenario and the worst case scenario, anything in the middle we can handle, right? The problem for most people is sometimes they only prepare for one or the other in the extremes. And so it's like, well, this is the best case scenario and this is the only option. And I'm going to make it. And I'm not going to have a backup plan. I'm not going to do anything else. And some people get lucky and that works for them. But the majority of people not having a backup plan can set you back months or years or sometimes, sadly, even decades. But at the same time, I don't have the talent. I'm not good enough. No one will notice me. I can't get this job. I don't have the degree. I don't have whatever. And I've seen this literally countless times. I have seen, I would say, hundreds of clients over my 13-year career who were underqualified on paper, but went in and said, let me volunteer. Let me prove to you my value. And they've gone into work-related environments or even dating scenarios where it's like, hey, this person, this man, this woman is so far above where I am, and they end up landing the job or landing the relationship anyway. And a lot of it has to do with the belief that anything is possible. All things are possible. And it's important to have a plan for the worst-case scenario, have a plan for the best-case scenario, and then whatever lands in the middle, which is usually where life lands us, we can respond to and adjust to appropriately. So hopefully these things about interesting people will be of value to you. And once again, like, subscribe, comment below if there's an audio you'd like to hear us put together. And we'd be more than happy to do that for you. Just give us a couple days. And again, I'm going to try and be more here on a regular basis. That's my goal. But until next time, keep your feet on the ground, your mind in the moment, everybody.